Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay, things people love.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Kate Golden is the best-selling author of viral sensation and debut novel, A Dawn of Onyx. She lives in Los Angeles, where she works in the film industry developing movies with screenwriters and filmmakers. When she isn't telling stories, Kate is an avid book reader, movie fanatic, and functioning puzzle addict. She and her husband can be found hosting cozy game nights and taking hikes with their sweet pup, Milo. Before we begin, just a huge spoiler warning for all of Kate's books, including Reign of Rose, which we had the privilege of reading ahead. So if you don't want to be spoiled for the Sacred Stones series, please, please, please do not listen. Come back once you've had an opportunity to read the masterpiece that is Reign of Rose.
Welcome, friend of the podcast, friend of our heart, Kate Golden.
Hello, welcome. Why am I the one that did jazz hands?
No, because I didn't remember over there when I did jazz hands. It's because you saw the bookshelf, so you're like
inspired.
Oh yeah,
Yes. This is so excited to have you back. It is funny because we did coordinate on purpose because we're wearing our matching Hosier shirts
that we got together.
All three of us together last week. Yeah, it was us three and
last
Tina.
Week. Yeah.
Yes. At Book Till Dawn.
At Book Till Dawn. Yeah. It was such a magical night because we had like we had Amy and Tina who were both like there for the vibes, and then you and I who were like screaming our heads off.
I did secretly take a video of you, Kate, just jumping at the start of the concert because you were so excited
and you so much height.
You could
I got real high up there. You know how to jump.
You do know how to jump. You go for it.
Well, I'm really short, so I'm a big concert jumper, so I can see the stage, you know?
I mean, and I'm on the taller side, so I never like try to jump because
you never have to jump.
I'm here.
You've never had to jump for your life the way I have had to.
Wow.
We got called out.
She just called
I know.
You're the lazy heroine.
You have non-jumping privilege. Anyone over 5'7" can suck it. No.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'8".
Damn, so jealous.
Okay, but I am like tall for average, but whenever you meet like a tall girl, they're always like, you're not tall. Like they shut down my height immediately because they're tall. No, they're sweet, but like they're tall, and I'm just taller
standing
than
up for
average.
all tall girls across the board.
Yeah, I just landed in an awkward space, you know. But what matters is that I can wear heels and put weak men to shame if I need to.
Oh, we love it. I'm so glad. Someone has to.
I'm just going to breed a bunch of Amazonian women. So
yeah. Ooh, can you marry a really, really tall guy and then you have like, have you seen that TikTok? I'm getting us way off topic. You can cut all this. But
is it the two tall couple?
Yes. And they talk about the D1 babies thing and they're still together. It's so cute.
Yeah.
I love love.
I love love. Which is part of why we're here today is to talk about one of the most epic love stories there is.
Aww.
Cain and Arwen. I can't believe it.
Aww.
Reign of Rose. I have not said it out loud.
Really?
Anything. Yeah. I just been calling it Rose, but it's coming out so soon. It comes out October 8th.
Yeah, we're less than 2 weeks away.
This will go live October 9th. So this will be live the day after.
Oh, exciting. Okay, perfect.
All right.
So we can spoil the crap out of it. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I want to. I wanted to like talk a little bit
We'll
about
give
it.
warnings.
We'll
Yeah.
give warnings, and then it'll be like, all right, let's talk. Because I have some serious questions. Because I wasn't well. You didn't need to make me cry that much. I think that you should
Oh.
take personal responsibility. And
Oh,
now,
that's so
once
sweet.
again, I'm in a book hangover because of you.
Wait, that's both of those, even though I'm sorry, those are both very kind things to say. I'm so sorry that I've given you a book hangover and I made you cry, but I'm honored.
So I did warn you, Kate. I don't think you've listened to my voice note yet. I did
No,
warn
I'm
you in
behind.
my voice note that I was like, I'm not gonna finish. I'm so sorry.
Oh, so we can't spoil it. We can't spoil it for you.
I told her.
Jack already gave me the rundown.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna live this life not talking about it. You're going down with me.
I
Fair.
also don't mind spoilers. It doesn't deter me from reading the book, but I will say to the point that I've gotten where Arwen's reunited with her family, that made me cry. And I was on the subway going to work, so
Oh my goodness, this is so sweet. I'm so glad. That's all you could ever want, is for it to affect people.
If anyone doesn't remember, you left us off on one of the most intense cliffhangers that I respect that I've read in a really long time. It was the kind of cliffhanger that you think, wow, I'm happy I have insider knowledge and I can just ask you for the book.
I'm really glad that I have the advanced reader copy for the next book.
Because I wasn't ready for the second book until I had the third one in my grasp.
That's so fair.
Because I had been hearing like online, like this is an intense cliffhanger. This here it is, and then I was like, yep. So yeah, I guess we're gonna just like, if anyone hasn't read at least up to the second book, spoilers, but like it's so to talk about it. You had it so that we enter Rose with Kane thinking that Arwen is dead. For a long time.
I know. I'm sorry.
I genuinely thought you were going to let him walk past her and not find out.
Oh my
Genuinely
God.
thought it. I was like,
Could
she
you
would
imagine?
do this.
I definitely debated it. That was such a big thing because it was like, we've all read books where there's a crazy cliffhanger and the main couple is separated. And then it's like the question of like, how long in the start of book 3 do you keep them apart? Because if they get back together too quickly, it's like you've lost all that great dramatic tension. And if you drag it out too long, I think readers get bored, frustrated. Like I went back and forth a lot.
As someone who was like watching the percentages go by, I think you did it at the exact right time. Personally, because I was tracking it because I was like, how long do I get to complain for? And I think and because it's like you don't, especially where you have book 2 where they are trying to fall in love again. Like Arwen is trying to open up, like, Kane is trying to win her over. So it's like, we just got them to agree to love each other.
Yeah. I know, it's like always so short-lived. Like any minute that they have happiness, I'm like, how can I immediately ruin this trip for them?
Constantly.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. That goes to it's not the first question, so I'm going to mix it up.
Sure.
I'm going to go to the first question. So genuinely, I would love to know, do you hate Kane? Because
oh my God.
the shit you put our boy through.
No, I love him with all of my heart.
Questionable.
The amount of stuff that he goes through that he has had to. And I will even say this where, people who've read SJM who knows what happens in Crescent City 3 when they talk about Rune and poor Rune. I don't know. I think Kane has it worse personally. I think Kane has some of the most like I hate reading from him because it hurts me so much, but I love it too.
Oh my God.
No.
I love it. I love it.
See, my theory is Kate doesn't hate Kane. She loves Kane's suffering.
That's actually true. That actually is, not even joking, that is actually true.
Like no one suffers more than better than Kane. Kane has epic.
He does. He really suffers. You know what's so interesting? It's like I didn't set out to do that. But I think that it was like, this is such a lame thing to say, but like the story, like eventually the characters tell you like what's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? Like you both, can I say you both are writers?
Yeah, you
I
can.
don't know if you guys
They know.
about it. Okay.
They know.
You both are writers, so like you get it. Like you have an outline, you tell yourself, you know, this is how it's going to go down. There's obviously a certain amount of suffering for all characters because you've got drama and dramatic stakes and life or death, and you know, people are going to, you know, think people are dead. That I guess happens in these books. But then you've got things happening where you're like, this is just the way the story has to go. I didn't anticipate this. And you as the author are like, oh God, this is going to suck. Like, this is going to be so painful. But it's the only kind of natural course of events, you know? And so you're just like, you have to lock in and be like, okay, my poor baby, you're about to go through some shit. I'm so sorry.
What was the biggest surprise? And if it's a spoiler, then like, you know, spoiler alert. But like, what would you say the biggest surprise out of the whole series?
It is, by the way, a total spoiler. Should I say it? The book came out yesterday. Okay. So in the end, in one of the final sequences, there is a death. I don't think that's like a spoiler. I think people can assume not every single person's making it out alive. That was not initially who I thought was going to die.
Was it Briar?
No, it was Doggin.
Doggin, I mean, because both of them hurt.
Yeah.
So you didn't plan for Doggin to happen?
I had written I had outlined all 3 books. So I knew when I was writing book 1, I thought I knew how I was going to end book 3. And so for whatever reason, I had come up with this idea that like Barney was sort of like a lovable, sweet, almost like Piggy in Lord of the Flies, like, you know, this so good, almost like too pure for this world kind of character. And I was like, those characters, you know, in some ways have to die to show like the end of innocence, or that like we've crossed a demarcation of how bad things are that, you know, we never thought we'd cross, or like sort of to enumerate a lot of things. And I had always thought that's what I was going to do. And then in book 2, you know, we're dealing with this idea that like Ryder is sort of, you know, he hasn't found his, like, he's almost got like a Steve Harrington kind of thing going. Like he's really kind of out for himself. And then he sort of like comes to the understanding that he's trying too hard to be something or to be heroic, or like he's learning his own, you know, his own lesson about what it means to be brave, which is a big theme in the book. And I sort of like the idea that him and Barney were friends, and that Barney is not going to make it and he will learn from that. So that was sort of what I had been like aiming for. And I wrote the scene, and it just like didn't hit emotionally. I hadn't, over the course of 3 books, spent enough time with that character as I thought I was going to. It was sort of just like, it felt mean-spirited, like, oh, really? Like him? But why? And it also just didn't feel like what would have happened. Like the character who actually ends up dying, like that is somebody who would have put themselves in that position. It's just what would have happened.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it like, and it's such a trope, you know, always killing off the mentor. And I was like, am I really going to do this? Everybody does this. And I tried to write around it so many times. And I was just like, this needs to happen. This is the thing that has to happen. And when I wrote it, I was like, oh my God, there you go. That's the book. That's how.
Well, even when Jack spoiled it for me, I was like, oh, that's so poetic. Doesn't matter how tropey it is. It's so poetic.
Well, when I was reading it happened, and I put my Kindle down, and I had a moment, and I was like, okay, that had to happen. Like, my reaction was immediately like, that had to happen. It hurt, but it had to happen, because even though it's a trope that a lot of authors are afraid of going, because they end up loving the characters. They end up being like, well, I want everyone happy. And that was one where, like, truly I was like, okay, this is it. Now, what didn't have to happen was the letter at the end, Kate. What the fuck
but there was a
that?
reason for that too. Oh my God.
What was the reason for me to like hyperventilate crying in my bedroom? Because that's what happened.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. That's so, by the way, that means so much, because it means you loved these characters and they felt real to you. By the way, the letter also, oh God, it used to be, okay, do you want some real insider?
Yes.
But is this interesting for the listeners? Like, if they haven't read the book, you do whatever.
I'm saying, like, yes, it's interesting, but on the other side, I'm like, this interview is for us. But no,
you keep in whatever you
they'll
feel.
They'll come back to it once they've read the book.
Okay. So, initially, this is another, you asked, what was sort of another big surprise.
Mhm.
Initially, I had written a kind of, how do I say this like succinctly? So basically, in one version of the story, Arwen found a smart way to get a letter to Fedric when she was in the in review in the capital in the Courts of Rose.
Yeah.
She wanted him to use, his family's army, and they would come, and sort of the cavalry would come, and it would speak to her like ingenuity and her cleverness, and also that like she had built this relationship with somebody who in the second book sort of talks about like he doesn't have the courage to stand up to his parents, that like that's something he struggles with. And so, but then she also goes through this with Alexander. And there's this moment in the final battle where the first army arrives, and then the second army arrives, and it's Citrine's army, and together they beat the king. And that was always kind of what I had envisioned. And then I wrote it, and it felt like the 1-2 punch was sort of like a hat on a hat. It like took away from the emotional poignancy of the fact that like her whole thing has always been like, she's so compassionate. Like she has so much heart, and she doesn't have to be the most badass, the most Katniss, the most Aelin. Like she can still be brave and worthy because she is like a fundamentally good person. She has a lot of hope, and she has a lot of light in her. And so she, directs that towards someone who is almost pure darkness and gets him to utilize his whole team to save the day. And I was like, that gets taken away by like this guy that had a crush on her also shows up. So like, I ended up, it was also complicated how she did it, whatever. But in that first version, the letter is the letter she writes to him. And you get to read what she said to convince him to come, which is sort of her reflecting on like, what is courage, which is frankly, without like, being too philosophical about my own, like, fantasy book, like that was what inspired me to write this book in the very first place, because it really was about my relationship with my anxiety disorder and feeling like, did that make me any less courageous or less brave? Because I was literally dealing with fear on like a daily basis, and that this was like a cathartic way to talk about that. So to end it with her sort of telling Fedric, like, this is what my experience is with, being courageous, and this is your time to stand up. That was how it ended. Then I cut all that, and I was like, well, now how does the book end without this letter? But I had already included that Doggin gives her a gift. She just had opened it like right before the wedding. So I was like, scratch that. He'll give her a letter, and we'll get to read it at the end. And then it just like came out so seamlessly. I was like, oh, that feels right. And it sort of,
I'm trying not to think about what it says, because like I will start crying,
oh,
and because it did
so
make like,
sweet.
I mean, is this the summer where you hurt me a little bit? Like I think I gotta say.
I'm sorry.
So since we're kind of already in the mode of the final battle, I'm gonna ask about that. You've mentioned both outlining and things changing as you were writing, or that you would write a version and then write a new version. When did you know that you had the right sequence, and how did that come together for you?
Oh, what a good question. This was, okay, at the time of this recording, I have written 4.5 books, let's say. I have these 3, something that will be announced soon, and something that I've written a first draft of that will be announced soon.
That's like 5. That's math. That's not correct.
Okay. Well, let's call it 5. Out of those, this was the hardest book I've had to write. And I think that the question you just posed is exactly what made it so difficult. It went through so many iterations that at a certain point I was like forgetting what actually even happened in my own book because I had changed it so much. And then it's really exhausting to read your own novel like over and over again. And they're so long. By the third one, you're like, I would never sit and read something like this quickly over and over this many times, like even if I loved it. And at the state it was in, I was like, and I don't love it. So, I think that I knew it had clicked when on one of those rereads, I never found myself. I have a bad habit when I'm rereading my own work and I'm not feeling great about it of like making I open my notes app and I write down all the chapters, and as I finish them, I delete them. It feels like, I'm like checking them off. It feels like I'm powering through. Like when you're on a run or something, you're like, okay, I just got to make it to the stop sign. Okay, I just got to make it to the whatever.
Yeah.
And when I found I was reading it and I wasn't doing that, I was like, oh, I found the flow of the book. Like I finally have hit that. But that took a while. I wrote a first draft. I wrote a second draft. I gave it to beta readers. That was my third. And then I went to my editor. She had a lot of notes. We did probably 2 more. I mean, it went through a lot. Mostly just because of like world building. Like the character stuff really didn't change. Even a lot of these character things we're talking about were settled by like the second draft. Most of it was you're just tying up a lot of loose ends. And a lot of loose ends that you opened, you know, when you thought you might never write all the other books or no one would ever read it. So you're kind of like I painted myself into a lot of corners. But, you know, on my most positive days, it was like, this is a fun, creative challenge. You know, it's like that I made for me a year ago, you know? But yes, that was it when I sort of felt like I had gotten it.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine like trying to remember every single like plot you have open. You're like, oh God, what did I decide that was going to, do I have to come back to that? I mean, but you did figure out some things like, you know, Beth's prophecy, right? Like you're going to have to make a deal type thing. So once that came to pass, I was like, cool. Like there it is. Like check, got it. You know? Like,
oh, I'm so glad that, that was so fun and was something I had been thinking about for a long time. And, and by the way, that doesn't even, all of those steps do not even account for when you go through the Berkeley copy editors who then are like, actually, on page, 120 of A Dawn of Onyx, you say this happened when the moon was full, but here, you're recounting the sliver of moon, and you're like, shit, over and over and over again. So many things like that. Or like you quote something that someone said, and they're like, actually, they never said that. And then you're like, oh, by the time that went through first pass pages, I had deleted that line that I'm referencing. You know, it's like, thank God you have people that are like, just are incredibly, I mean, the editors there are unbelievable, the way they read these things with like magnifying glasses.
Thank goodness. I mean, there was one moment where I was like, I wonder if you knew how big of a plot point / how difficult I'm sure this was going to be writing, but Lazarus. I can't say names. It's my brand. Lazarus, the fact that he can read minds. Book 1, that's like, oh, that's a cool, scary thing. Yep. Book 3, when they're trying to like, get one up over him. Was that something that you knew it was going to be like that big of a challenge for the characters at the end? Or was it one of those things when you're like, oh, this is fun, and then towards the end you're like, oh no.
I only in that one scene. I think I knew when I wrote the end of book 1, I was like, if I ever write this, as a trilogy, which I hoped that I would, even then when I thought it would just be for me, I was like, this will be a challenge, but I really wanted him to be more powerful than anyone else. And everybody, especially now in these fantasy books, can like make things, with their like fae powers and mist and fire. But like, I wanted him to have a more kind of tangible one-up on everybody. So I knew that was going to be hard, but I was like, it should be, because he's diabolical. Like, it should be hard. It wasn't like hard to write until that one scene where they're trying to be sneaky around him. And I was like, nobody can know because he can read their minds,
Yeah.
It was definitely
I mean, and there's been a couple of times where they had to like, Cain would say something like, and this isn't too spoilery, but being like, oh no, he's near, don't think anything. Especially where like I kept thinking like, what would I do? I'd probably just start singing like do 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 do, but then of course then he would know that I'm there, because he would just be like, what in the hell is happening? What is someone singing Taylor Swift again?
Like, he's like, what is that beautiful melody? Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I think she does that at one point. She's like, think of nothing, think of clouds, think of empty space. Like, it's really hard to do. No, that was definitely, I think it adds to the feeling of him being like everywhere. He's like, literally, he's in your head.
No, he's a really good bad guy, because especially when you have moments where he's not empathetic to Cain, but he also isn't like, I want to kill you and revel in your blood either.
Yeah. No, that was one of my favorite scenes to write, when we're just spoiling left and right, but when he and Cain are fighting and he's like, of course I don't want to kill you. You're my fucking son. Like, that was not, I'm willing to do what I have to do to succeed, but like this was never the plan. The plan was that you would serve with me. You know what I mean? Like you're my child. You're the only one in the lineage that has this dragon shifting ability. You know, your brother didn't have that. Like, I think that's painful for him. You know, he's a father still. He's a terrible, horrible person, but he is a father, you know?
It definitely humanized him. I think I gasped because I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't hate him?
I'm so glad that was your reaction. Well, also because it's like, this is a man who killed his own wife and killed his own son. Like he is vicious. He has a black heart. But I also imagine that like he went home, was stone faced, went back to his private quarters and sobbed, you know, like after that happened, you know?
I feel like we like spoilers are bras and we just ripped off our bras and we're like free now.
I'm not wearing one anyways, as we covered earlier.
I'll take mine off.
I'm very anti-bra.
I think what I love about Lazarus and what you have with that dynamic is that in theory, Cain and Arwen could have gotten married, had all their kids, and Lazarus would have gotten exactly what he wanted. Like in theory, they could have easily partnered with him and they could have been together. They could have still ruled all these other things. Like it would have very easy. Like it didn't have to be Arwen and Lazarus. Like he even says, you know, you're giving me what I wanted. A pure-blooded fae on the crown, like, you know, on the crown. So it is, I thought that was a really good thing to be up against because it's tempting, even though they never think about it. But a reader who is like, how can we get out of this? I'm definitely thinking, I'm like, well, that's an option, but it's there.
And I think you're probably not in this book, but I think that Cain says that or thinks about that at some point in Peridot. Like that at the end of the day, like his father just wants a race of true fae. And if they were willing to work with him, like he doesn't have to, because Cain is more selfish than Arwen. And I think at multiple points in the second book more than the third, because I think by the third he has grown through loving her to maybe not, it's not his instinct, but he wants to do what's right. But in the second book, he's like, I will let everybody fucking burn so that she can live.
Yeah.
And that's his sort of thought. He's like, or maybe actually it's in the very, very top of book. It's
in the top of book 3.
You're right.
Yeah.
When he's with
the White Raven.
Man.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the man in the cold place because like what can I give away? But yes, you know, like that, you know, he really is like at the end of the day, I just want her to live. And I think in that darkest moment when he misses her so terribly, he's like, I would do anything. Of course I would let everybody die for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's like, no.
Well,
I'll save the day.
I did love how much Cain was selfish and wanted to be selfish and reconciled with his selfishness. And then ultimately was like, I know I can't do it because I've learned empathy and I've learned what Arwen wants and I want her to be happy. And I know that this would not make her happy. And that was a very beautiful journey. I also have to say, because Jack hasn't said it yet, but the whole time I was reading this book, you have grown so much as an author.
Yeah.
Oh,
and you should be so proud of Reign of Rose because
yes,
like, of course I love Dawn of Onyx. I love Promise of Peridot, but this is like your masterpiece. Like of the 3, you have grown so much.
It's, and I'll piggyback off of that. Like, I think when in our very first interview, I said something, I was like, oh, you can see the growth in your writing and the confidence of it. And to piggyback off of what Amy said, like it's so clear how much you have grown as a writer. And again, you don't always get that with authors, you know, like it's a craft that you have to hone and you have to build, and you can see that you had a challenge and you met it every time.
Yeah. And every version that you wrote, it paid off.
Yeah. Big time.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wish I could like go back and tell me, who was like drowning in drafts and tears, like, hey, it'll pay off. It's going to be worth it. I can't tell you how much that means. I think that it's a wonderful lesson for anybody that is listening to this who wants to write or who is struggling with writer's block or is in their 6th draft of something, you know, like this was the hardest creative thing I have ever done in my life, writing this book. And I also think it is the best published book that I have written. I think that it is really, you know, and not because, not in any kind of like self-congratulatory, you know, it's just like you can see the work. And that's such an important lesson, that like every mistake, you know, it's like what your parents tell you and you're kind of like, yeah, you don't really get it. But like every mistake, every time you mess something up and you're like, this doesn't work at all, scratch that, go back, do it again. You're learning, you're refining, and the physical, actual, like the words are getting stronger and better. I mean, when I was writing A Dawn of Onyx, and I don't know if this is like so lame to admit, but I can't imagine I'm the only writer who ever did this. Like I was going back and reading passages of Sarah Maas and trying to emulate her style of writing, you know, like everything was hauntingly beautiful and lethally calm. And like, because I loved it, because I was like, nothing has described the world, has made me see the world the way her writing does. I just want to write like her. And then you go back and read it, and it reads like somebody who is trying to write like Sarah Maas. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, and you do have to learn, but actually, I think it's Brandon Sanderson. No, it's Stephen King who talks about how that's a very common thing, that like when he was a younger writer in some of his earlier works, you know, when he read Tolkien, he wrote like Tolkien. When he read, you know, Infinite Jest, he writes like, you know, that happens until you kind of become an amalgam of all of, you know, your own internal dialogue, the authors that you love, your own colloquialisms. And I think you can see that, or at least I, when I'm reading it, can see that more in Rose, that it sounds more like me. And even more so now in the newer things that I'm writing, where I'm like, oh, this really sounds like me, you know, and that I'm not saying that's necessarily better, because sometimes I'm like, that sounds too much like me, like but you know, I think that that confidence, that's a nice thing to find on the other side of a tough, you know, draft or two.
And it's, you know, it's fun reading this, because now we've, you know, since our first time meeting you, interviewing you, we've developed a friendship with you. And it's cool to be able to like, I know your voice and it's not what I'm reading. You know, like every once in a while, Mari will say something that I'm like, that's a Kate.
Wait, that's so funny.
There's
Only my
Kate.
friends say that.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Well, we're your friend. That's why. No,
I know, but it's like, it's so funny when people clock that. They're like, you don't sound like any of these people, but sometimes Mari.
Every once in a while, Mari will say something, and I can just like see you. But like, you know, the fact that like, it is your voice, but it's so not it's not your voice. It's like, you know, it's not your real name. It's Kate Golden who's writing.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
Yeah.
By the way, that's like the highest compliment, is like, it sounds like you, but it doesn't sound like you. Yeah. Because you obviously, you don't want your work to read like a journal entry, or like how you would, you know, text somebody or something. Yeah. But you also want people to be able to recognize it as you.
It's Kate Golden. It's not.
Yeah. Beep.
Yeah.
The other name.
The other.
She who shall not be named.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't even tell you guys this. I was at a book event on Friday night with Tina, actually. Another shout out at Book Till Dawn. But I immediately meet like 3 book influencers, and I'm like, hi, I'm Boop, and like said my name, and they're like, oh, and then I had to be like, no, actually, I'm Kate Golden. That's not true. They're like, oh, and I feel like I'm not pretending to be her. Like, I just accidentally used my real name because I'm not used to this yet. And then they're like, oh, sure. So
that's so funny. I saw that event. It looked like fun. It was looks like a cute bookstore too.
Yeah, Smitten Bookstore in Ventura. Everybody go. It's incredibly cute there.
Okay, so I have one, just like a funny thing, and then again, we're back into the spoiler zone. I'm gonna put a spoiler warning at the very top, because we're just like, when do we get to talk to the author like that? You know what I mean? To be like,
no, it's totally, yeah.
One, I was telling Amy about, like, you know, we were kind of talking and stuff, and like, you know, how at the very end Arwen gets to talk to her dad, and I was like, I guess that's literally her fairy godfather.
Oh my god. You're so witty. He literally, actually.
That's like,
actually.
That is her fairy godfather. So
yeah, truly.
I don't think that's a spoiler. I mean, I guess
no, that's a spoiler.
That's
a spoiler. But
spoilers abound.
I know. I think, did you know from the get-go that Arwen was going to be a phoenix?
Yes.
And that's why you called her
You can
bird.
see it. Yeah. You can, there's little hints of it throughout all 3 books. Like, so many little, By the way, they're probably like not subtle at all. And like I thought I was so sneaky,
No,
and people are like,
it's subtle. I didn't know.
No.
there's so many things in the first book, like obviously him calling her Bird, but then that's the whole thing with Dawn. Dawn of Onyx, he's Onyx, she's Dawn. Dawn is Rebirth. There's like a lot of stuff like that. And then also the chapters, the part breaks.
Oh,
It's the
spark.
It's the ashes, spark, the rise, the flame. Yeah.
You think I'm reading those? I'm like, you're just a
No,
page in my
no,
way.
totally.
You're
No,
just
of
a
course.
page in my way.
No,
to
by the
get
way,
through.
you're not alone. When I gave this to my beta readers, I think I've talked about this before. I do these like really dorky like feedback forms, which is a holdover from my day job, because when you test screen movies, you give people these like NRG forms. You know, it's like, would you definitely recommend this movie to a friend? Blah, blah, blah. So I do that when I have my beta readers read my drafts before they go to my editor. And on it, I was like, did anybody clock the significance of the, the parts? Like, did it give away her Phoenix form? And everyone was like, no, what do you think? I'm not paying attention to that. And I was like, great.
So funny. Great. I just criticized Jack about this for our Sky and Breath stuff. I was like, didn't you notice XYZ about the parts? And she's like,
Amy, didn't you notice that each of these were here now with Kate? It's
I haven't finished the book,
but you read most of it.
No, it's I'm glad it's subtle. That's the dream. You don't want it to be
subtle. And then now I know I get to go back and read and everything, and just like be able to like hear for the.
Yeah,
actually. Oh no, go ahead, Amy.
Oh, I was just gonna say I didn't clock it, but now I'm like, oh, there is a part where there are lots of parts where in the third book where Kane is like, no, she's not a finch, she's a falcon, or like trying to name the bird. I appreciate that.
I was gonna say also, I have not reread the series ever, like altogether, but I am doing a giveaway for my newsletter. So if you're a newsletter reader, I think actually by the time this comes out, it will have been given away. But
in general, you should sign up for your newsletter so they can get.
Yeah, I'm not annoying about it. It's only once a month, and actually starting the new year, it's going to be every other month, because even once a month is too much for me. But I am doing a giveaway where I'm annotating all 3 books and I'm giving away the annotations, and I'm really excited to reread and like clock little things like that for readers. And like,
that's
out,
cool. I was like, do it on a digital version and then send me some.
I know, by the way, I think I'm going to do it and then take pictures of all my annotations, that if I ever want to do it again, I can just like go through page by page and do it, or do it digitally or something.
Yeah. Because
I'm not going to do all that work and then it's gone to the abyss, I'm
like, do I have to create a fake profile to enter so I can get this? Like,
I'll send you pictures.
I want to see the cool things. Yeah. That's amazing. I was really excited about like the Phoenix form at the end, and then I was as I was telling Amy, I was like, she was a bird the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
she was always a bird.
You got it. She was always a bird.
Okay, another question that I have, and I'm like really doing like a pivot. That was my motorcycle pivot.
It was excellent. It was an excellent pivot.
Thank you. Ryder, her brother. Do you personally feel like he's been redeemed?
What a good question.
I have
thoughts,
questions, comments, concerns.
And now a word from our sponsors. Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. and they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Blinds.com's Black Friday sales event is happening now with our best deals of the season. Let our design experts help you make the perfect selection for your home on your schedule. We can send free samples right to you and handle everything from measure to install. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 50% site-wide, plus doorbusters, and a free professional measure at the Blinds.com Black Friday sales event now. Rules and restrictions may apply.
And I personally feel like he can suffer more. Yeah.
Oh, you're like, Kane had to suffer so much, and Ryder gets away scot fucking free. Okay, let's see. I think that on one hand, I'm very averse to tying everything up with a neat little bow. I hate when books do that. I don't want to feel sad. Don't leave me feeling sad when I put time and energy into your book. But when everybody, it happens obviously a lot more with rom-coms, every single person gets a happy ending and everybody finds a partner, and it's that person that we met for 6 minutes ends up with this guy, and you're like, oh, come on. It takes away from the hard work we've put into the main couple who have really fought for each other. Can you tell why I write fantasy? I'm I want everyone to suffer all the time. But so I sort of felt I don't know if he gets sort of a perfect redemption arc where he's a hero. I think he gets to do one good thing for people, and that is enough for him, who we don't spend a ton of time with. I think if the books were longer or was more of a Sarah Maas kind of thing where we spend a lot more time with supporting characters, we would have learned more about him and he could have had more of an arc. But this is more romance forward, and so the supporting characters don't get that as much. That all being said, it did sort of, I have a lot of, and they're sort of very clearly, outlined in the book. There's 4 potential future love stories that are built out here. There are. And I think him and Amelia is an interesting one. I don't know if I would ever write a full book about them or if anyone would want to read that, but could they pop up in future books or get a novella or a bonus chapter or something where I don't know if he gets fully redeemed. I frankly just don't know if I'd want to spend that much time with him, but could we get the sense that he's growing and learning and there's more ahead for him? Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I like that he's taken on with the little, he's now helping raise the girls and stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Oh, so speaking of future novellas, books, etc., Mari and Griffin.
Yes.
Okay, as someone who knows a lot of things behind the scenes.
Sure.
Give me.
Find a way to fit it in.
Squeeze it in. Well, here's what I'll say about this. I have a book almost fully outlined for them, to the chapter. So I already know their whole story. I'm dying to write it. I'm really excited to do that. What I can say is that it will happen one day, because even if I write it for myself and I self-publish it, because maybe my publisher feels we're on to bigger, newer things, and that's not something they want to do, which, by the way, they have not said, they haven't seen the outline or anything. That hasn't happened. So but let's say that were to happen, I still would eventually write it and self-publish it. I really hope, unless one day it just sounds not fun to write. But I think I've said this before on another podcast. I know it makes me sound crazy, but in my mind, until I've written the book, these characters haven't gotten together. So I'm standing between these two people being together. Every day I don't write their book, they're pining for each other somewhere in my mind. So I'm I gotta write it.
How much more can you make people suffer?
I know. It's everyone's suffering. So I hope one day that that's something I could write. I have a feeling that, look, the truth is, and maybe this is too much of how the sausage is made or too much of a peek behind the curtain, but it really comes down to how popular the series is, because the publisher probably doesn't have much of an interest in, buying another book or another couple of spinoffs for a book series where it's just, the series had its moment and the moment has passed, which happens and is not, a good or a bad thing. But I think that like they're very excited about some other things that I have working on as I am as well. But it seems like that door has very much been left open. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it, and maybe if Berkeley is upset, we'll scratch it. But I think it's fine. When I was having an edit call with my editor, I said, should I give them a kiss? And she said, save it till you can do it the way you want to do it. Yeah. Which sounds like she's sort of team, this will get told one day. So I feel like...
what I'm hearing, it's up to the listeners to make it happen. Like,
no pressure. That's very buy my books.
No, all the pressure.
I will write it one day. I also will say this, and this is another it's funny because when I was early on in writing and I did podcasts, sometimes they'd be like, what advice do you have for readers? And I was just kind of like, ugh. And now I actually have answers to those questions. So another piece of advice I will give is nothing gets you across the finish line like passion. Like I had, this will be announced by the time this is out, 2 months from now. But I had an idea for something that was so niche and so left of center, and talk about things publishers don't want to take risks on. I was like, who in the world wants to read this and wants to read this from me? And I was just so passionate about it, and the story so demanded to be told that I was able to get whatever. I won't. You know what I'm saying? No, things were able to come to fruition that will be announced soon.
As someone who's read it, this is me being Amy and I got to read it,
and I'm a beta reader.
We're beta readers. You guys are
my dreams.
The passion comes through,
and that really counts. So and that really counts, especially, and that's what's so beautiful about the book community and about publishing. I work in film. I promise you that is not the case in film. Not always. I guess sometimes it is. But, I think if you go to your team or your editor, your publisher, your literary agent, and you're like, I just can't get the story out of my head. I am obsessed. It demands to be told. I feel very blessed to have the kind of team that's like, all right, we're going to find a way to make it happen. So I feel that way about Griffin and Mari. I feel really, really passionate about them. They have a story. My little witch needs to have her happy ending.
She does. I would like to put a request in, if that's possible.
Okay, of course. Let me get my pen out.
Yeah, Alexander, there's a lot there.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot there. That's been outlined too.
Okay. And then obviously we have
I'm a chronic outliner. I have a problem. Chronic outliner.
We have heart. There's a lot of things there, but we have some listener questions for you.
Ooh, cool.
The first one, you kind of touched a little bit on it, but what's your writing process like?
Ooh, okay. I guess just on it overall, or the actual sit down writing.
No, just whatever you want the answer to be.
Well, okay. The answer I feel in my heart. My writing process is, like I said, I'm a chronic outliner. So usually once I have an idea for a book, I start just jotting down bits and scenes and moments and lines of dialogue and everything from a scene where he's wearing this, little things. And they just start filling a Word doc. I'll be out living my life. I put them in my phone notes, then I get home and I transfer the phone notes into that Word doc until that Word doc is 30 pages. And then when I'm okay, I have a jigsaw puzzle of a story here, I'll sit down and sort that into an outline. And then I take that outline and sort it into chapters, kind of like a sieve, repeatedly kind of sorting through until I have a chapter by chapter outline where I feel if I read it through, I've read the Wikipedia synopsis of my book and I could see it in my head. And I think for a lot of writers, that feels it takes the magic out. Then they feel they've written the story. But for me,
I love that. That resonates for me personally.
It. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You outline. Neither of you are pantsers, right?
I outline.
I outline. I'll pants as I'm writing if I feel there's a chapter I didn't know I needed to write, but I'm going to write it now.
Yeah.
Totally.
But, I outline every scene of every chapter.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, then I'm among, kindred spirits because I love to do that. So I'll outline and then I'll sit down and it depends. I mean, usually then at that point I'll write a proposal based off that outline and it goes to my editor. And then I will sit down and write chapter by chapter by chapter. I don't ever go back and read. So once it's been written, it exists in the ether. You, at least for me, never ever go back and reread until the book is done, including acknowledgments. Like I finish the book, I write the acknowledgments, title page, I make a map on Canva, I write a whole book, and then I let it sit for as long as I physically can stand. If I had all the time in the world, I would leave it for like months. I don't have that kind of time, so I usually leave it for like 10 days.
Yeah.
And then I sit down and I read it all the way through, making comments like as if I am my own beta reader. Like I don't edit as I write. I just am like, this is a mess, cut this, change this, whatever.
Interesting.
And then it's done. So I've been my own editor and I am the writer. And then I have to like reconcile the two parts. I go through and I take all of my notes and I divvy them up into like small notes, medium notes, big notes. So small notes are like, this word is terrible. Why would you use that word? Medium notes are like, this dialogue exchange like could be funnier, and big notes are like, this ending is terrible. Like, rewrite it or like whatever. And then I'll go through and do my small notes first because I feel like I'm like, oh, I can do this. This is fine. And then I work my way up. I make all my changes. I read it through again. And then sometimes I do that whole process one more time, depending on whether the book needs it. Then it goes to my beta readers, who are wonderful, talented, beautiful, fabulous ladies, two of which are here on this Zoom with me, and give them a feedback form. They get like 2 weeks. They read it. They fill out the form. I go through it. I try to look at it like with my developmental editor hat on. I make more edits, and then it goes to my editor. And then she gives me an edit letter. It gets more edits, and then the book is done.
I'm happy that you took us through it because it definitely helped me a little bit in what I'm thinking.
Oh, really?
Because sometimes I go back and reread to like find motivation, but I'm wondering how much of that doesn't help me motivate versus like getting it all out.
Well, it depends. Do you go back and change things, or you just read
I'll go
sections?
back and I'll change it. Like then I'll be like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, look, what do I know?
No,
but I find
you're
that
someone who has written things that I love, so that's what I'm going to take.
Yeah, and you've successfully written several books, so I think you get all the kudos. Yeah, I constantly am self-editing. So another part of your process I've learned from Kate, because she is an inspiration, is she gets up 2 hours earlier than she needs to so she can fit in writing every day.
What?
And
I didn't
so
realize that.
I hate
Wash
it.
that out.
I took a page out of your book today, and I woke up at 5 a.m.
Oh, I'm so proud of you.
to write.
Oh,
and I
you are a
did
killer.
write. And I got almost 600 words out in like an hour.
Hell
I was
yeah.
very proud of myself.
Wow.
So you're an inspiration.
I'm so proud
That's
of
how
you.
you do it. Because, Kate, you've written.
Where else are the hours?
Yeah, no.
Where can you find them?
You have Beyonce hours. Where I don't know where they come
I'm so
from.
honored. I'm gonna like fall over.
you have Taylor Swift Beyonce hours where I'm like, where the hell did those come from? Do we not have the same 24 hours in the day? Because again, I'm very much aware. I'm very Amy and I are both very privileged and very lucky and fortunate to be part of some of your writing process, and having seen what you've done, and then knowing that you've gone and redone things. It's like,
and the time frames in which you've accomplished
this
those
year's
things.
not even over.
I'm literally blushing. This is so kind, you guys. The truth is, honestly though, and I really mean this, like, I love it. So like, what else are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, it sucks when you have to first start setting the alarm because you're like, I don't have the hours, and if I don't wake up early, it's also like, it's so quiet. I have a day job that is really demanding, so like around 8 that begins, even if I'm not in the office, like emails, phone calls, texts, whatever. So like when I wake up at sometimes like 4:15 in the morning, like it's quiet, it's just me and my dog, and I'm just writing, and like you need that time. So even though it sucks, it's like, I'm not going to not do this. That's sometimes my favorite part of my day.
Do you listen to music, and what kind of keyboard do you have?
I just write on my laptop. I wish that I was like those cool authors on like Bookstagram that have like the clacky, beautiful keyboards. I literally write on my like shitty old MacBook Air.
Yeah, no, I have.
Which is terrible.
My wrist hurt because I was holding up my Kindle reading your book.
Oh my God, sorry.
Wow.
I feel terrible. I'll send you a break.
Because I was like going in for the reread, and then so I had to buy the Kindle holder that attaches to my bed.
Sure.
So that with the remote. Anyway,
the remote.
But,
yeah, love
so now my wrist hurts. But like, cool. So you just listen in silence. You know what? I'm gonna do this tomorrow. All 3 of us. Let's all text each other.
Yes, we should in the morning. I sometimes won't listen to anything. Sometimes I need the silence. But I do when I'm reading through, again, I do that in silence. But when I'm drafting, I think to kind of like help the flow state, I listen to scores. So music and I mean movie scores, video game scores. Depends, like when I was writing Sacred Stones, it was a lot of like Miyazaki and The Witcher and Game of Thrones, like beautiful kind of like tavern sounding, like medieval. Then when I wrote this, next thing that will be announced, I was listening to all the musician that it happens to be based on, like lyricless versions of that music. And then the thing I'm currently working on right now, for whatever reason, it's like totally unrelated to the book. I'm listening to the Twin Peaks soundtrack because it's like spooky, haunting, cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And a little bit of the Stranger Things soundtrack, which is like completely unrelated. But
but I've seen your mood board.
Yes, you have.
I've seen your mood board.
Yes, you have. Oh wait, by the way, I have, just remind me at the end, I have something, you can cut this out, something to show you guys based on that is fun.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, sorry, I apologize. The reason why I brought up my own writing and to not make this about me is that
no, do please.
I am constantly going back and like I need to read the previous chapter because I need to get back into that feeling. Like I wrote one of my characters today and then went back and read. I'm like, oh, I wrote the wrong character. Like,
oh my God,
I need to go back and fix this.
I think that's why the outline is so helpful too, though, because I'm like, I'll just pick up. It's almost like, you ever play that game where everyone at the table draws a part of the person and then you open it and you see what the drawing was? It's almost like that. It's like, I sit down and now it's chapter 14. And even if I haven't written in maybe 4 days and I don't quite remember how 13 ended, I just reference the outline and it's like, okay, this character's going to do this. Then I read it through and then it's like nice because maybe actually where I had ended at 13 was kind of weak. And had I gone back and read it, I would have followed that same thread. But I picked up on 14 and 14 was a banger. And actually I just need to go back and rewrite 13. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like each chapter in some ways can kind of live. I also like have favorites. You have moments you're dying to write. You can't wait to get to. You have moments that unfortunately feel like filler and you got to try your best to make them interesting for your reader. Because if you're bored, your reader will be bored.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's also helpful. Like I try to write them in, I'm like, okay, here's a chapter that I know I'm really excited about. I'm going to love this. And then I'm not going to try to carry that over. Like now I got to write the next one and the next one could be something kind of different, especially if you're switching POV. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I love it too. Yeah, no, we're going to start a group text of like, wake up, who's awake?
Please.
I'm awake.
Yeah.
I'm writing.
Okay, I'm so down.
Okay, so another listener question, which I think kind of goes into like what you're saying about like motivation and everything, was like going back to the Sacred Stone series. They wanted to know, did you draw from any mythologies to create the deity system in Sacred Stones?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I took from any mythologies. I think, I guess in some ways there maybe a little bit with the idea of like the Roman gods or the Greek gods with the planets, how it's like Aries and Mars both being, it's red and it's fiery, how like there was a physical thing in the planets that they assigned to the same kind of personality as the deity. So I guess in that way I felt that way about the stones. It's like onyx is, war, but also, in some ways art and prosperity. Like there's a lot of beauty, like dark pathos and beauty in onyx. Meanwhile, amber is the warmth and the hearth and the harvest. So I think maybe a little bit in that way. I mean, I'm a huge, huge Greek mythology nerd. It has wormed its way into everything I've written, despite how different all of the books are. It's just something that I grew up being like completely obsessed with. I loved it. It felt like the greatest fantasy ever told is like all of these different characters and all of their lore and the powers that they each have, so I'm sure that found its way in there. Definitely.
Yeah. And then, okay, one other person asked if you'll pay for their therapy.
After
yes.
Peridot.
After Peridot.
DM
okay.
me.
Great. And then this is a great one to kind of like wrap up. Like, I mean, we're going to keep talking, but they say, thank you for creating another fantasy world. I'm sad to have to leave. I'm so sad to be done with it. Do you have any more plans in the future? So like with other writing. And the answer is yes, but you can't say anything.
The answer is I'll be so cryptic, but at least, I have something that I'm really excited to announce that I will be announcing on December 5th. And if you are not in the broadcast channel on my Instagram, it's called Kate Writes a Hosermance. You should join that before December 5th, because people who are in there may or may not get a little something special. And then, so that, whatever, we'll see what happens there. And then there's also something new that, by the time this is out, will have been announced. Wait, this comes out October 8th?
Yeah, this comes out October 9th.
9th?
It's on the last page of your book.
Yeah. Okay, wait. I kind of forgot. Sorry. Sorry, everybody. So my next series, wow, this is the first time I'm talking about it. This is so exciting. My next series is, or the first book in my next series is called Half City, which I'm so excited. Oh, you guys are so cute. Which I'm so excited about. That is a trilogy that will take place. It's like an urban fantasy, paranormal fantasy that takes place in a college in urban metropolis, kind of like an NYU, like an urban college. That is for demon hunters. So I've been pitching it colloquially, like if Buffy and like Dean and Sam Winchester like all went to the same college, like this is what that would be like. And so, wow, I've never pitched it before. But yeah, so that's something that I'm working on now that I don't think that when I announce it, we're going to say when it's coming out yet. So I'm going to sit on that. But more to come with that soon, which I'm really excited about.
It's so fun having gone from sitting in a sushi restaurant for forever ago and you telling us like,
I have this half idea.
Yeah, you're like, I have this idea. Does this seem like it would be good? And then you sent us over the document, which I'm starting to read tomorrow. And I read the first sentence and I got chills because I was like, oh my God, it's like coming together. And I also was like, the first sentence was like one, just like being so excited because it's like, oh my God, I remember when it was just a little thought thing in your brain.
A baby, a little embryo.
A little embryo of thoughts, and then to have it be, and then like also like that the first sentence was I had to like put it away because I was like, Kate, you're good. I was like, this is gonna be good. It's you've to like what Amy said, you've grown as a writer, and it's so hard to get that first sentence hook and everything, and it like there's again I only read the first couple of lines because I was like,
no, I'm so glad you had this reaction.
Descend into chaos if I continue this, and
comes right in like quite quickly.
And so to be able to do that, I was like, okay, I'm excited. You're touched, but I'm thrilled because I'm like I get to like truly, the summer has been dominated by you. Like
I'm so honored.
Once Peridot came out, and then Rose, and then
big. It was a big year,
and then another, and then this one.
Yeah, 4 books that you've read from me this year. Crazy.
Damn.
No, but by the way, it's also I wonder if it's interesting, like the reader or the listeners that are hearing this right now. Like I have announced this book. It's a trilogy. It's all coming together, but like as we speak, my beta reader, my editor has not even read it. Like you guys are reading it. I'm going to probably do more work. It's due to my editor it was actually supposed to be due on October 1st. And I was like, I'm a maid of honor in a wedding, I bought a house, I'm dying here. Can I have till the 15th? So I pushed it till the 15th, but it's like all, it's all still crackling.
I almost said your real name. Kate has taken us through the process of just like, and this isn't a spoiler, but just like of how much like work goes behind the scenes between a publisher and everything. And to which I have to say is I will continue providing the best beta edits I can just so I can be ahead of everything and continue to read.
Oh my God, you're an ex. Oh my God, you don't have to like, you just have it instinctually.
No, I'm going in hard because I'm like, I want to like, you told me how long it takes for certain things. And I'm like, do you think I can wait? Do you think that's
yeah?
I'm in it.
I was thinking that there's someone who often betas for me, and she's really fabulous. And she can't beta this round because she's writing her own book, which is really exciting. Yay. And she was like, "But I'll catch the next one. Like I'll read book 2." And I wanted to be like, "You'll have to read book 2 long before you ever get to like purchase and publish book 1. Like I'll have finished probably the 3rd book maybe before the first one ever even comes out.
God, I want
So you won't be waiting
Oh
forever.
my
God, it's almost like you think the first one will end in a cliffhanger or something. I would never do that.
Here's the thing. I adore you, I love you, and I don't trust you in the slightest.
And you shouldn't, because I'm a big fat liar.
Yeah.
I love a cliffhanger. I love them. It's actually at the very end of my acknowledgments. I'm like, I thank my readers, last and most importantly, and I'm like, I'm so sorry about all the cliffhangers. I can't help it. I love them.
Well, I'm happy because people now get to read Rose, and if they listen to this, that means you've read it. And
exactly. Or we've spoiled the absolute crap out of this.
Yeah, but I mean, even if they did listen to it with all the spoilers, there's just so many amazing gems. We didn't even talk about the spice, which is top notch. See, that's how great of a the story is, that the spice was so good, and that wasn't even part of the discussion. And I love a spice talk.
Oh yeah,
I'm so honored. Spice is hard to write. I loved the spice in this book too. Wait, have I told you about the slutty scene that was cut?
No.
Okay, so this is all spoiler. Yeah, no,
Okay,
you can keep this in, because I think I put it on my story on Instagram recently. But the scene in the inn where there is a scene in the inn where Arwen and Kane want to hook up, but they can't because they're sharing a room with Griffin and Mari. It was sort of like my take on the one bed trope.
Yeah, no, it was funny.
I love that it was like
bed, 4 people trope. Yeah, exactly. It was not quite.
I thought it was
The second I read it, I was like, this takes me back to our conversation from last week. How do you take a trope but extra troop it?
Yeah, exactly. Literally double it on all fronts. Well, I was like, they can't have problems sharing a bed. They're in love. Well, by the way, that's another thing that no one tells you is once your characters get together, good luck keeping things tensiony, because they're in love. So you're okay, I gotta throw things at them.
It's the Luke and Lorelai of it all. Once they're together,
it is.
Yeah,
it is.
So
I will say, I feel like, I was just gonna say, lesson learned, and in the future, I think that I will wait and have my characters get together.
That wasn't the lesson.
Is that not? Oh, okay. Don't take that and run with it.
You did enough to keep them apart.
Make them suffer more? Is that what you're saying?
Because I think we ended. I remember talking to you after the first book, after Dawn and Onyx, and I was like, what the fuck was that? You just cockblocked me so hard from that scene.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't want to root. And I'm like, so now you're telling me I have to wait longer for that. Anyway, so tell me about this slutty
I'm so
scene.
sorry. So basically, in the first version, or whatever, the 6th version, whatever version of the book, they just can't help themselves. Need it. So they go into the hallway and they fuck in the hallway.
Oh.
And I was like, I was scandalized writing it myself, because I think I was a lot of the spice leading up to this point, it's twined with all this emotionality. It's because of loss. It's because they've finally gotten together. It's because they don't know how they stand. This is the first time. It's because they found each other after near death. This is the first time they were just this is how they probably have sex when they're happy and hanging out. They're just a couple, because it was sort of the happy period of the book. So I'm like, oh, this is just horny. This is just so horny. And it's so racy, and I just can tell it's he would encourage it, and she would be like, no, oh my God, someone could find us. And he would be like, come on, whatever. Because that is so she's good girl, he's bad boy, but then deep down, obviously, he cares about consent, and she's actually a little more she's into things that maybe she pretends that she's, whatever. So I think
she's
it's
down
sort of
for hallway.
Yeah, she's totally down for hallway. And actually, it was very important to me that if he was going to be like, come on, let's do it, then in the end, she was one that was like, no, come on, let's do it. And he's like, really? He was kind of messing with her. So
that's
they
so
do
kind
it in
of
the
you
hallway.
to email that to me.
So they do it in the hallway, and my editor was like, I think we have to cut this scene. And I was like, what? Why? And she made a really good point. She's like, it's too much spice. And I was like, do you mean because it's written too raunchily? And she's like, no. There's an interesting alchemy to the ratio of spice scenes in a book to what the vibe of the book is. And it was coming off of that, going into the bathtub spice scene, coming off of the in the forest spice scene. It's just starts to feel like maybe this is a spicy book and not a book with spice. And she was completely right. And actually, it's so much hotter that they can't. But I saved the scene, and I will be sharing it via newsletter. Another shameless plug to sign up for my newsletter. Probably for New Year's Eve or something at the end of the
I
year.
love it. Or winter
Sign up for the
solstice or
news.
something.
Yeah.
Yes. A slutty winter solstice for us all.
I'm praying. I mean, what kind of pagan gods do I need to dance with? Because I want, what kind of fairy godfather do I have to
Exactly.
Find.
do I need to find to get this happen? No, but she's right though, because there was there was a moment where I was like, this is a good amount of spice. Like,
Yeah.
I actually had that active thought of like, yeah, no, this felt right and everything, and damn it. All right, fine.
I'll send it to you like right after this.
I'm so happy. No. Oh, if you didn't, I would send you some more voice notes where I'd be like, hey.
You're like,
So
hello.
about that scene.
I'm so behind. I'm even more behind on yours than I am on Amy's. I'm so behind on all
At
my
least
voice
you
notes.
just skip it. I think you just skip mine. I think we just start fresh.
No. Are you kidding me? No, I've been saving them. We can blur this out if you upload this on here. But I literally have on my big to-do list your voice notes, Jack. Voice notes, because I don't want to forget about them.
You're that important.
Yeah, you're like third on the list.
The thing is, you can like scrub them, just scrub through, because it talks about your draft.
I love them.
It's talking about the book that you've written and we now have in our hands. Let's do some plugs, shall we? Like, you're going to be at the Rip Bodice. I'm going. Amy, you're going, right?
Yeah, I haven't signed up yet, but I'm going.
Yeah.
Yes.
Camry's going to come too, so like bringing some friends along, and so yeah, you're gonna be at the Rip Bodice doing a signing, and you're gonna be another location on October
8th. So I guess at this point,
on publishing day. Oh
yeah, it's my launch event.
All right, well, what about the ones coming up?
Yeah, no, of course. So if you're listening to this on the 9th and you happen to live in Austin, come to Lark and Owl. I'll be there with Allie Hazelwood, which I'm really excited about.
So excited.
I'm so...
Oh, I know. Well, come to Austin. Come hop on my same flight the next day out.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
By the way, if you wanted to come, you absolutely can. I'm going to be in a hotel room by myself in Austin. You absolutely should come. Full invite to both of you guys.
Give me a beat.
It's also going to be your birthday, Jack. We could
not on the 9th.
Not on the 9th. Yeah. It's on the 11th. I'll be back in time for my birthday.
If you guys want to share a big hotel room, all of us together, we can go get some breakfast tacos in Austin. Okay, so that's Wednesday. Okay, so if you're listening to this on the 9th and you are in Austin, come to Lark and Owl to see me and Allie Hazelwood. If you are listening to this and you live in St. Louis or around there, come to the Novel Neighbor on the 10th. I'll be there. And I will be back at the Rip Bodice on the 22nd of October with Stacey McEwen and Amber Nicole celebrating Stacey's new book. And then I will be at Smitten, the bookstore in Ventura, for a Q&A with Laura Thalassa on November 1st. And then I will be at Fall into Book Fest in Anaheim on November 2nd. And then I will be back at the Rip Bodice again because I am moving in there on November 15th with Sarah Hawley for her debut fantasy book, which I'm really, you guys should all read. It's fantastic. It's called Servant of Earth. And then I'm going to take a really long nap.
You deserve that nap.
Yeah. Okay, so that means one, I need to figure out where I'm like what's that? Not fangirl, the roadie, like the ones.
Oh yeah,
groupies. I'm gonna groupie. Figure out where I'm. Groupie.
Drive all around.
Yeah, drive all around. 2, I we'll grab dinner in November sometime then.
Maybe December.
Yeah, truly. No, November is my month for fun. I will be available for fun things again. And then actually, while I'm plugging stuff, I will be at a Polycon in April. So I'm really, really excited about that. My first Polycon, if anyone's going to be there. And I will be at Romantasy BookCon in Los Angeles in February. If anyone is going to be at that.
Oh, shit. Right. I was supposed to look into Romantasy BookCon in February. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That was on my to-do list. I need to write that down.
And if you are listening to this and you are interested in any kind of urban fantasy, magical school, demon slayer, Buffy inspired kind of supernaturally stuff, it's not available for pre-order yet, but if you sign up for my newsletter, that is the best way to just get an email when it's ready. You could just click it and buy it, or you don't have to buy it. You'll at least know that it's available. And like I said, if you like rockstar romances, join my Kate Writes a Hose Romance broadcast channel. And if you're in there on December 5th, there may be something fun for you.
Yay.
Yay.
Tell us where they can find you on Instagram, TikTok, everywhere.
Website.
I should have said that. My bad. You can find me on Instagram at Kate Golden Author. You can find me on TikTok at Kate Golden Author, and you can find my website, Kate Golden Books, www.kategoldenbooks. That will haunt me forever that they're not all the same, but it's like change now. So what can you do?
That's amazing. Well, thank you. We will obviously, and every book that comes out, you're on this podcast. That's how,
Please.
That's how we roll.
So.
That's how we roll here.
Yay.
Please, everyone, go buy Reign of Rose 3 times so that the publisher knows, so that we can get Griffin and Mari.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna haunt me. That I said.
Do what you got to do, guys. We'll make it happen. But no, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
And I can't wait for the listeners just to read more of your stuff. That's going to be great.
Oh my gosh. That's so kind. I love coming on here. I love you guys. This was so fun.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's special episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Stick around for our next episode where we continue our analysis of Sarah J. Maas's House of Sky and Breath. If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle booktalkforbooktalk. Bye! Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.